Next on Currents News, a claim by Illinois' Attorney General that hundreds of the state's priests have been accused of sexual abuse. The church is pushing back. At the heart of the controversy swirling around the story, just how many of the accusations are credible. We'll break it down for you.
Oh, it's horrible because it's a violation and it's a personal violation.
A security camera records the moment a thief invades a Queens Catholic church and swipes their musical instruments. Plus, actor Brandon Michael Hall is here to tell us about his new hit TV show, God Friended Me. The news starts right now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. Tonight, 6 dioceses in Illinois are facing claims from the state's attorney general. She says the church withheld the names of 500 priests accused of sexual abuse. The charge is raising a lot of questions, like what categories does all these accusations fit into? We will dig into all of this tonight, including speaking to Crux editor John Allen. But we begin with the developments in Illinois. Currents News' Michelle Powers reports.
Illinois Attorney General says the state's Catholic dioceses have failed abuse victims.
Just based on a preliminary review of files for the 6 dioceses throughout Illinois, we have found that there are at least 500 additional priests and clergy members who have allegations of sexual assault against minors against them.
Lisa Madigan is acknowledging church officials have publicly identified 185 priests credibly accused of abuse in Illinois, but is arguing that's not even close to the real number of those with allegations against them.
We've had over 300 people contact us. We put up a clergy abuse hotline, and people who are calling us, they're not looking for money. They're looking for some measure of justice.
In a new preliminary report made public Wednesday, accusations have been leveled against 690 priests. Most of those go back decades. In a response to the Attorney General, the Diocese of Springfield said they have provided the office with documentation of all allegations of abuse, whether or not those allegations were deemed credible. Bishop Thomas Pabrocki said, "Revisiting the paying cost to victims of abuse has motivated us to redouble our commitments to the reforms undertaken many years ago and to sustain our vigilance." The Attorney General's report does not include some key details, like when the allegations were made. It does not accuse the dioceses of withholding names of credibly accused clergy, only that the list of names of accused clergy is far longer than made public.
We need as a conference, as brother bishops, to take up this issue for the good of the church in this country without delay.
Cardinal Blaise Cupich, the leader of the Archdiocese of Chicago, emerged as a fierce defender of survivors at the United States Bishops' meeting this November. In a new statement following the Attorney General's claims, he said, "I want to express again the profound regret of the whole church for our failures to address the scourge of clerical sexual abuse. It is the courage of the victim survivors that has shed purifying light on this dark chapter in church history." Cardinal Cupich says the Archdiocese of Chicago, in particular, has been making strides against clerical sex abuse since 1991, more than a decade before the Dallas Charter. Michelle Powers, Currents News.
The biggest controversy over identifying by name priests accused of abuse involves whether the allegations are credible. But how is that definition arrived at? Currents News' Tim Harfman reports the answer is not always clear-cut.
Around the country, dioceses are releasing names of priests considered credibly accused of sexual abuse. But what does the term mean? Christopher White, the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, spent weeks researching the issue. He says when it comes to deciding whether an accusation is credible or not, standards vary.
There are a lot of competing definitions of what credibly accused means, and there's also a debate as to who actually gets to define the term itself.
The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops doesn't have a formal definition. At the USCCB's November meeting, many prelates expressed a desire for a uniform national policy. USCCB President Daniel DiNardo vowed he would look into this.
We'll work on finalizing the standards of accountability for bishops, finalizing the protocol for removed bishops, and studying national guidelines for the publication of lists of names of those clerics facing substantiated claims of abuse.
While the first instance of a diocese publicly releasing names of accused priests dates back to the early 2000s, following the release of a Pennsylvania grand jury report in August, dioceses around the country have started to follow suit.
There is the interest to protect children, and at the same time there is the interest to ensure that a person is not being dealt with unjustly, being unjustly accused.
Monsignor Kieran Harrington, the vicar for communications for the Diocese of Brooklyn, points out that while many survivors of sexual abuse and watchdog groups have praised the move, some advocates have raised concerns that innocent priests may have their good names ruined without due process.
Why would that happen? Well, perhaps the priest wasn't assigned in the parish at the time the abuse was alleged. Maybe it's a person who has suffered from this sort of trauma can sometimes make an allegation, misidentify somebody.
In February, Pope Francis will convene a global meeting on sex abuse at the Vatican. The summit is more likely going to address broader issues, leaving dioceses to sort out their own policies for releasing names and deeming clergy credibly accused. Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Crux editor John Allen joins us now from Rome. There's a lot of questions raised by what the Illinois Attorney General is saying that we want to look into. John, I want to begin with this. A lawyer for the Chicago Archdiocese, name of William Kunkel, is rejecting the Attorney General's findings. Two reasons here. He's saying the idea that abuse is more extensive than what's been reported by the church is false, and that naming clergy only accused without credibly substantiating the allegations is not fair. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Liz, what we have here are sort of competing standards of what it means for the church to come clean. Basically, the AG and the critics are taking the position that the church owes the wider world disclosure of every name of every priest who has ever been accused of sexual abuse. The church is taking the position that that's irresponsible, that just because somebody has been accused doesn't mean there's any credibility to that accusation. They're saying that what full disclosure means is disclosure of every priest who has been credibly accused. That is, that there's some basic reason to believe that there is merit to that accusation. And actually, you know, from a logical point of view, Liz, it is really hard to fault the church's position here. But from a PR point of view, of course, given the reputation the church already has, you know, when it's a very difficult argument for them to make in an environment in which people are already disposed to believe that they're engaged in a massive cover-up.
And this probably even adds to the questions, John. As far as we know, the Illinois Attorney General hasn't even set up a grand jury to scrutinize her claims, as happened in Pennsylvania. Shouldn't she bring her findings at least to an independent grand jury?
Well, you know, you'd like to think so. And given the fact that grand juries typically do whatever the Attorney General asks, this is not exactly a strenuous standard. I mean, it is hard to avoid the suspicion, Liz, that part of what's going on here is simply some political grandstanding. I think everybody understands that because of all of the disclosures and the scandals that have surrounded the church, you know, over the last 2 decades and just within the last year, it is in a very vulnerable position, and it's easy to score political points. But I think the deeper question here is, what does responsible conduct by the church in this situation look like? And I think Cardinal Cupich in Chicago and the Archdiocese are trying to argue that there are some minimum standards of decency here about protecting people's reputations that can't just be sacrificed because, you know, some politician decides to go on a witch hunt.
Now, the Illinois investigation is one of more than a dozen state probes into the church's handling of the cases. Final word here, John. Is there a danger that there could be a rush to judgment without establishing the credibility of some of these allegations?
Well, of course there is that danger, and that is precisely why we have a legal system in which someone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. I mean, you know, I'm naive enough to believe that, like, over time, when the mechanisms of the American justice system kicks in, we'll separate the wheat from the chaff. But I think the pastoral conclusion that the church ought to draw from all of this is that we are going to be living with the clerical sexual abuse scandals Liz, probably for the rest of your and my adult lifetimes. I mean, this is the new reality of the Catholic Church, that we have to learn how to be church in an environment in which everything the church says and does is scrutinized through the lens of the sex abuse scandal. That's a whole new reality that I think we're only beginning to get our minds around.
All right, John, thank you very, very much. You helped answer a lot of really important questions there, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops established what is known as the Dallas Charter in 2002 to combat and prevent sexual abuse. Some of the measures include creating the Office of Victim Assistance to help individuals who come forward with allegations of abuse. The office provides counseling, referrals for therapy, and other important resources. Every employee of the Brooklyn Diocese, including students, undergoes mandatory training designed to spot the signs of abuse and how to stop it. Bishop DiMarzio meets with survivors and listens to them carefully. One result of those talks is the annual Mass of Hope and Healing in the diocese. And the diocese also has a toll-free and sexual abuse reporting line. That number is 888-634-4499. And for more information, go to the Diocese of Brooklyn's website, dioceseofbrooklyn.org, and click on Protecting Our Children. Tonight, police are asking for help to catch a criminal who invaded a church's sanctuary in Queens and stole musical instruments worth thousands of dollars. Currents News' Emily Drewby has that story.
It's a violation of the parish.
Police are on the hunt for a man who stole $4,000 worth of guitars from Shrine Church of St. Gerard Majella in Queens. Police have just released this surveillance video of the crime. The pastor, Father Joseph Jude Gannon, says on October 30th, the suspect walked through this door, disrespected the sanctuary, and attempted to get into the locked pour box near the Shrine of St. Gerard.
And then he went right into the sacristy.
That's where the suspect found the two Gibson guitars that he took.
The police have him on camera putting the guitars onto his bike and biking away.
One of those guitars held very special sentimental value to the church's music director.
Her father had given it to her 30 years ago as a gift, and her father has since passed away. We can replace things, but we can't replace the reality that it was given to her by her father.
Father Gannon says he wishes the suspect would have just asked for help.
If he had rang the doorbell in the rectory, we would have helped him.
NYPD are asking for the public's help in identifying the suspect. Call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-577-TIPS, or you can text your tips to crimes and then enter tip 577. Father Gannon explains even though this is a difficult situation, seeing people come together to help the church warms his heart.
So people are generous, people are good. We want to be able to make this right, and we want to be able to get ours back, but if not, we know that by God's grace, we will be able to figure it out.
They've seen donations coming in from people who have heard the story. They've even recently been talking with a woman who might donate guitars. In Queens, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
A new saber rattling tonight on the Korean Peninsula. North Korea is now threatening to keep its missiles and nuclear weapons unless the U.S. first removes what Pyongyang calls a threat. The surprise ultimatum this morning comes as the two countries struggle over denuclearization. The North's warning stems from American troops and weapons stationed in South Korea. There's a lot more news headed your way. Big differences are taking place with American families and how children are raised. Find out what's happening. In tonight's tablet preview, a special Christmas story about Catholics helping youngsters in Cairo, Egypt. Editor-in-Chief Jorge Dominguez will be here with details.
To me, the idea that God doesn't exist is very far and foreign to me.
Brandon Michael Hall will join me to talk about how his faith helped him prepare for his new role. Do you have a story idea? Something happening in your parish we should know about? We want to hear from you. Keep this email handy, newstips@thesalesmedia.org. We'll be right back. A GoFundMe page has been created to raise money for President Trump's border wall. A Florida vet started the page on Sunday, and at last check, it has raised over $4 million, with the goal being $1 billion. President Trump has campaigned for a wall at the U.S.-Mexico border, but so far has been unable to secure from Congress the billions needed. Only half of the children in the U.S. are being raised by their biological married parents. That's according to a new study out tonight. The Institute for Family Studies found the main reason for the change in family life is because of lower marriage rates in the country. The more education parents have, the more likely they are to be married when raising kids. Helping kids during the holiday season is the Diocese of Brooklyn's tablet newspaper. For over half a century, the Bright Christmas campaign has looked to make sure Christmas morning is a happy time for children. And here to tell us about this year's effort is the tablet's editor-in-chief, Jorge Dominguez. Jorge, please give us an update. How's the campaign going so far?
Thank you, Liz. The campaign is going very well. The response has been tremendous. We are approaching $90,000 already, but we are still short of what we got last year. It was 120, and we are, we want to at least reach that amount.
So you're short now. We're only a few days from Christmas. So tell us really quickly, how can people help?
Well, you can send your check to the Bright Christmas campaign at 1712 10th Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11215.
All right. And this is also my favorite part of this. Tell us about a special story that you have in the tablet about some Christmas elves from Cairo, I believe.
Yes, it's a beautiful, touching story. Yeah. The Christian minority in Egypt, it's really a minority. They are in Cairo. They have Our Lady of Peace home for orphans, but for orphans and for orphans with special needs. So this year, what they do is they train these kids to learn, skills that they need for life, and at the same time they train them to make candles and to do ornaments and things like that. And then when Christmas comes around, they sell their products.
Oh, always such great stories in the tablet.
It is a beautiful story.
It really is. Thank you so much, Jorge. Supporting the tablet ensures that Catholic journalism will thrive well into the future. These are stories that oftentimes can't even be found anywhere else. Subscribe to the tablet right now. Save up to 55%. Go to the website, thetablet.org/home55, or you can call 877-883-8356. Still to come on Currents News, the star of the hit drama God Friended Me is here.
Religion should be something we talk about at the dinner table.
We're joined by actor Brandon Michael Hall next, and the sweet surprise Santa gave to these two precious girls just in time for Christmas. We'll be right back. What if God tried to send you a friend request? Would you accept? That's the question behind the new CBS series God Friended Me. It's a show about a preacher's son who happens to be an atheist. Then God reaches out through Facebook, sending young Miles Finer on an unlikely spiritual journey. Here's a clip of Miles on the show speaking on his podcast.
Sounds like whoever's behind this God account is giving you that chance and you've embraced it.
Thank you, Zoe.
Yeah.
I'd admit, the God account with all of its mystery has given me a sense of purpose, and it feels good.
And joining us now is Miles in real life, the actor Brandon Michael Hall. Brandon, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you for
having me. We've been
having
having such a great conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, but we have to get serious now. The cameras are rolling.
Yes.
You know what? There have been so many shows that explore God and it explores faith. But what was it about the script when you received it that said, you know what, God friended me? This is different.
Well, when I looked at the title, I was like, well, yes, this is very different. But when I opened it up and I read from cover to cover, I realized that it wasn't about religion. It was about spirituality and about communication and having a connection with your fellow person, So for me to be able to come from one show and to go into this and it's a positive outlook, it was the perfect venue for me.
And there's a personal connection there that
Absolutely.
You've talked about. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, well, my mom, as she's told me, and I respect what you said, Mom, she is a minister. She has been ministering. She's not pastoring anymore. So, but she has started her own church, and she's been out doing that ever since I could could remember. We grew up in the church just like Miles did, and in the same vein in which Miles has started to explore and question and gain a closer relationship with his faith, I've been able to do the same thing with mine.
Now you have a mom that's a minister who's
Yes,
now
praying.
pastoring, evangelizing.
Yes.
How difficult was you to play someone who's just an adamant atheist?
Yeah, at first it was difficult. It was very difficult because to me the idea that God doesn't exist is very far and foreign to me. But then I had to go and find him. So I had to do research on Miles and what did it mean for him and why did he choose to become atheist and believe in this belief. And so even though I grew up in the faith as well, I think questioning it brings you closer to God. It gives you a better relationship.
Now, you're a young actor. You're tackling a message with a very deep issue. Is faith a big topic among millennials?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Should it be? Should it be bigger?
I was about to say, under millennials, you're a millennial, so it's not that far away. But it's a conversation, and yes, I mean, what do they say? It's like 3 things you shouldn't talk about at the dinner table. But religion should be something we talk about at the dinner table. That it is something we should discuss. It gives us a broader understanding of who other people are, and that is the core center of religion, of spirituality, is connection of people and communicating.
Now we're getting closer to the season finale of the show. Can you share anything with us about the rest of the season? What kind of growth and development should we expect?
So I would say the growth and development is, one, the relationship between Miles and his father, who's played by the amazing Joe Morton. That relationship grows and grows and grows on both ends. Also his relationship with Kara continues to grow as well. And finding out who's behind the God account. Is it Falcon? Is it Priya? Who is it?
The mystery continues.
Yeah, the mystery will continue. Yeah.
Here's the thing. We're in an environment now, a generation, my generation, your generation as well. We love to binge. We love to watch these shows. We sit back. And what kind of message do you hope that anyone watching the show, whether they're binging it for an entire day or watching it for the first time, what kind of message do you hope people receive from it?
It's hope. A message of hope and love in a time that we don't have a lot of it, When people come up to me and they say, yo, I got to watch my show with my family. When's the last time families have sat down and watched a network show together? I remember doing that with like Seventh Heaven. I remember doing that with, with those types of shows.
You took me back.
Yeah, right? I mean, but we brought that back to the screen. We brought that family dynamic back. And so that's what I hope people take away, is that sense of hope and love.
Brandon Michael Hall, it has been more than a pleasure
It's been a treat.
speaking with you today. Thank you so much. I look forward to watching it and binging.
Yes, please, please.
And I would love to have you back, maybe
Absolutely.
after the season finale, talk a little bit more.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
2 little girls in Minnesota asked Santa for just one thing this year, to see their daddy for Christmas. And St. Nick didn't disappoint. Daddy! Captain Steve Guptill had been gone for 9 months serving in Kuwait with the Army National Guard, but he made it home just in time to surprise his girls for Christmas.
Santa brought me home for Christmas, like you asked. Daddy. I missed you so much.
Best Christmas ever.
Yeah.
For sure.
Captain Guptill and his wife Becca planned the entire surprise at the renowned Mall of America. They always put these stories last, and I try so hard to hold it together. That was so sweet. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.